we will be recording this session. There it is. We'll be recording this session. That way you guys can come back and look at it. If you want to make glaze for another occasion, this video will be uploaded onto CTAHR's YouTube page. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I guess a little bit about me first. I'm Sam Alvarado. I completed my bachelor's in the NREM department, as well as my master's. And I would like to start working on my PhD in TPSS next. I work in this like in between of conservation and education, environmental ed world. And I currently work for CTAHR with our mentorship program. So I'm able to combine a lot of the things that I love from both of those aspects of my life. Okay, so to get started today, we're going to be making a Ti Leaf Lei. So that's the medium that we're working with. People will call this Ti Leaf or Lai, and there's many different colors. So I have two with me today. And then we're going to be braiding our lei into a hilo style, which is basically the name of the type of twist that we're going to be creating or braiding or weaving. So as you're prepping your tea leaves, some of you folks have, some of you folks haven't, which is okay. But I always like to shoot down my leaves and wipe them off so they're nice and clean. You can get all of our dirt or bug friends off before we're using them. And then what I do is I debone my fresh tea leaves. So I pick them by pulling them straight off one leaf at a time off of the actual tea leaf stalk. And then I debone them and I cut out this midrib here. So we won't be using that part today. Let's see. Do we want to flip? Okay. We're going to flip the screen around. That way you guys can have the same view and you don't have to watch me backwards. That way you guys can see my hands as I work.
Or do you want to pull the table back a little bit?
Sure.
Getting caught in the sun.
Okay, is that better?
Yep.
Perfect. And then if you guys have any questions, you guys can go ahead and ask or put it in the chat, and Jessie will be helping me out with that today. So I can answer questions as we go along, or let me know if I'm going too fast, if you want to see something again, or give you some time to work on the braid, feel free to let us know. Okay, so I use a pair of scissors to debone. Some people will actually bite out and hand pull it out, but I found that this way I get a cleaner cut, which will come in handy when I'm cutting my inserts, which we're going to be putting into our lei as we braid it. So I prefer to cut, but it's really up to you and your preference. And I just cut close to the midrib as possible without having the midrib on this side. Okay, and then I flip over my leaf, so I'm right-handed. I just cut along the midrib again. So you're going to want to do this when you're prepping for your frozen leaves. Once you have a bunch of these cut out, I gently fold it into thirds. I'll make a little, call them bundles. Make these little bundles, and I put them in a freezer Ziploc bag, and I throw them in the freezer at least overnight. And what this is going to do is it's going to make our tea leaves nice and soft. So that way when we braid or we twist them or we pinch them, they're not going to crack. They're not going to break and shred apart. It's going to make them a lot more pliable and malleable. So I have my frozen set here already. I'm going to cut a couple more leaves with you folks so you have time to cut. And these are going to be my fresh tea leaves. I'm going to leave this set fresh since I already have my frozen leaves. Personally, I like for my inserts to be fresh. So they're not as sticky when you're wearing them. It's not gonna, the tea leaf juice and sap isn't gonna get onto your clothes. It looks shinier. You get the nice glossy look of the leaf. And I like that it stands out. It just looks fresh and crispy. So I always like to make my leis very last minute. That way the recipient is going to have a nice, shiny, beautiful lei. Add some of my red tea leaves. Just going to debone. Another thing too is that there's like, sometimes you get little spots or yellowing. You can go back and trim them off, or maybe you have something, you know, a yucky spot on your leaf. You can always just go with the grain of the leaf and trim it off if you don't like it. Some people like it, some people don't mind. It just adds to the character of your lei. But sometimes leaves aren't the best when you're making your lei in summertime. Maybe it was really dry. Your leaf doesn't have to be perfect. You can always salvage when you're cutting your inserts, because you're cutting them out one little piece at a time. You can always just discard your little rubbish, ugly parts of your leaf and make the most of what we have. How are we doing so far? All my reds. Responses. Okay. Just want to make sure I'm giving everybody time. Okay, now with our fresh leaves, the next step that we're going to do is make our inserts. So this should be your crunchy, fresh, right off the tea leaf plant leaf, not the frozen ones. You can use frozen ones, but they'll just be softer. I prefer my fresh leaves. So the rule that you're going to want to look for is your scissors should be in line with the actual veins of your leaf. So you can see like all these little lines running through your tea leaf. Your scissors should go in the same direction. So you might have to kind of look. I always tell everyone, if you can see an X, if your veins and your scissors make an X, that's wrong. That's the easiest way to know. If it's making an X, that's bad. Don't cut it that way, okay? You want to flip your leaf around. So you might have the dull side or the shiny side up, but you're going to want to just look for the veins and make your scissors in the same direction. So the shape, our target shape that we're going to look for is like a parallelogram. So for me, my leaf has a little cut here. So I'm actually going to line my scissors up and I'm going to get rid of that little ripped piece. So it won't continue to shred down my leaf. So I just cut that off. That'll be my little rubbish piece. And what you do is you slide your scissors down. That way it's a parallel line with your initial cut. And then you can kind of control how fat you want your insert, maybe how long and skinny, just by angling it or sliding it down. I personally like my inserts to be a little bit, around an inch maybe, in width and a few inches long. This will also be a little bit different based on the size of your tea leaf. I have some medium tea leaves today, but sometimes I'll have really huge tea leaves and they're like lush and beautiful, and I won't angle it as much. Otherwise my insert will just keep going and going forever, and I'll just angle it down a little bit. So this is kind of our target shape and size. If you can see that parallelogram shape where you have your parallel lines. But everyone's is different, and it's kind of nice. You can always tell who your lei maker was by these little details. So some people will tell me, oh, my inserts are too skinny, or they're too fat, or they're not as pointy, and that's okay. Everyone's different, and everyone's lei is going to come out a little different. So when you get to this bottom piece, you can either continue and cut off this curved edge, or you can leave it. Totally up to you, up to the lei maker. You're just kind of looking for the shape. So I still have my parallelogram shape. I just trimmed off a little bit. And then I have all my inserts in my little hollow basket. You can just make a pile. So again, you're going to look for The veins in your leaf should be the same as your scissors, and then you're going to cut. Now, I say this is the hardest part of making a lei, is learning how to cut your inserts, because you'll have wonky shapes and sizes, and you might accidentally make an X, and then your leaf might break. So it just takes a little bit of practice, but what we're just going to do is cut some of our inserts. I'll give you folks a little bit of time to work on that as well. Another thing you can do as well in this style, since it's a twisted style, or like a 2-strand braid, you can always put other materials in the lei as well. So you have a plumeria tree, something with a nice little stem. I've also used Song of India. There are different mediums that you can use. Do some red. Is this your guys' first time making a lei? Have you made this style before? Or have you maybe done a coulis or a flower, a threaded lei with flowers? That's okay. I like this style because there aren't very many other supplies that you need. You can go out and pick almost anywhere. There's no lei needles or thread or other supplies you got to go out and find. You can pretty much just go out and harvest everything yourself.
Lara says she did it once before for her 15-year-old son's kindergarten graduation a long time ago.
Cute. Yeah. So I started making lei in school as well. Then when I was a little bit older, I started making lei. I danced hula for a bit. So I learned a bunch of styles there, and I just really fell in love with it. I'm very much a plant person, a flower person. So I just kept learning, taking other workshops, learning from other kumu. There are many different styles, which is very nice. Okay.
Marlon says that you never took a class on lei making, just through online videos, but already have learned so much about how to cut the leaves and why.
Awesome.
And Dr. Nuriker says, yes, I do make several leis and also did this lei for my son's graduation last year. Also used some flowers.
Nice. Yeah, this lei is probably the most popular for graduation season. I make a lot of leis during graduation season. Prom is a huge one. So this particular style that we're going to be making, the braid is called a hilo, but you might also have heard of a Maile style lei. So a Maile lei is typically made with Maile leaves, but Maile is hard to grow, hard to find. It's usually up Mauka. It's slow growing. It's very kind of sensitive. We have a lot of invasive species now, so Maile is hard to come by. It's also hard to farm. So people will use tea leaf and make a Maile style, where it looks similar, but we use these instead. So this style that we're using here is that same style lei that you hear people say Maile style, because we're putting these inserts in to look like the leaves. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm going to make a closed neck lei. So it'll be a circle, like your regular neck lei, as opposed to the long open Maile lei. If you would like to make the Maile lei, where it's open on both ends of your lei, you're gonna start with 2 leaves and tie them together in a little loop, if you want your lei to be open. But I'm gonna make mine closed, so instead I'm gonna start with only 1 leaf, because I'm going to loop them in it of itself. So I made this little contraption that you guys can see here. Normally I will loop my Ti Leaf Lei onto my feet, but I didn't want my feet to be filmed. So I made this just with a old hanger, but I've seen people use clips, just anything where you can slide your lei onto to hold it for you will work. If you don't have a partner to hold it for you, or you also don't want to have sticky tea leaf toes, you just need a hook to hold your lei for you. So I'm going to make my loop by just gathering my leaf together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to twist my leaf, and I'm going to hook it on here so this can hold my lei for me.
Bring it closer to show the twist.
Sure.
Oops, sorry guys.
So I'm going to twist my leaves to the left in my hands, so left. And then I'm going to braid to the right. So you're going to take your left over to your right. So you want it to be opposite, right? So twist left, over right. That's going to ensure that your braid is going to stay together. You're going to notice things aren't coming out quite right if you twist left, braid left, or twist right, braid right. You want it to always be opposite. Otherwise, your lei won't stay together properly. So twist left, over to the right. And that's how you're going to get your hilo style braid. Now, I like to count the number of twists in between my inserts. You can choose any ratio that you want, but it's just going to determine how fluffy and full your lei is going to come out, right? If you have less braids in between, the more inserts you're going to require. So you might be cutting inserts for quite a while, but the fuller your lei is going to look. So I have 3 here. So what this loop is going to allow me to do is when we're done, I'm going to tie it shut on itself. That way we don't have bulky knots and things within our lei. It'll look a little more seamless as a circle. So I take my inserts, I'm right-handed. So I take my shiny side of my leaf and I put them down. And I make this little X for 2 of my inserts. I poke it with my pointer finger and I smush it together. I scrunch it using my thumb and my middle finger to make a little bow tie. Can you see the bow tie? Mm-hmm. And I put it right in between my 2 braids. And I'm going to do the same thing, put left over right. And that will lock it into place. Okay, left over right. Okay, so again, if we're looking, we're going to do shiny side down. I poke it with my pointer finger and I scrunch to make a bow tie. Oh, sorry, that's Hina. She's very jealous. Okay, so that's what we do. And then we're just going to keep linking it in to our braid. Now, I'm at this problem where I'm starting to run out, which means I need to add on more of my frozen leaves. So if you're not at this step yet, it's okay. I will continue to show how to add on. But if you're at this step with me, then you can follow along as well. So I have my frozen leaves. It's harder to tell now, but this is the shiny side, right? So I put my shiny side down. And what I do is I make a little, I don't know, taco maybe, a little taco. And I like to taco inside my lei leaf with the new leaf. I also have this excess that's poking out and it'll just look like another insert. It's also going to ensure that this locks in properly. If we have it too short and you pull your lei a little too hard, it's going to slip right out. So I like to leave some excess to help lock it in. You're going to make your taco, and you're just going to continue the same thing. You're going to twist to the left. Just ensure that your little lei leftover is in there. And then I do left over right to lock it in place. Okay, let me put this guy on this side. So now I have a longer leaf to work with. Now, sometimes you'll, depending if your leaves are the same size, you might run out on one side and not the other. Don't fret. It just means you have to add on to one side. So again, shiny side, I like to put it down so it's more of like the out. Put my little leaf inside, make a taco, a little buck, and twist to the left. To lock it in place, you just do left over right again, and that'll help to lock in. And you have these little extra inserts. And I'm going to do left over right one more time. So it's really locked in good now and really secure. Let's see, will that count as my green? I might do alternating colors too. So I'm going to put in another red set. Point your finger, pinch into my bow tie. In the middle, so you're going to have your inserts, some sticking on top, some sticking in the bottom, and I'm going to lock it into place by putting left over right. Okay, twist to the left, over to the right. Twist left, over to the right. And I might do, maybe we'll do two. We're going to do 2 twists in between every insert. So I'm going to use green next. Make my bow tie. That might be another tricky part, is learning the perfect pinching technique and getting your hands used to that feeling. I'm going to lock it in place. By twisting to the left, over to the right. Tie. Twist to the left, over to the right. Okay. How are we doing? Do we have any questions? And again, if you just want your lei to be more full, you can always put your inserts every twist or every other twist. You can even put inserts in when you're adding on here, but it might be a lot going on at first. And then as you get better and better, then you can also add inserts in here. If you feel like this is a little empty, maybe to put 1 extra insert, or just depending on the look you want. Some people love it full. Some people say it's too big, too fluffy to wear. It's a personal choice. You can also use different colored tea leaves. I know they have like the variegated ones and stuff like that. The only thing I would caution against is freezing your red tea leaf to braid. Red tea leaf is a lot stickier, and it will definitely stain. These red juices are very, very sticky, and really prone to staining. But the green isn't as bad. So I will use my plain green as my base or my braid for the hilo style. Alternatively, you can also just continue this hilo braid without any inserts. You don't have to put inserts. Some people will do lots and lots of strands of just hilo with no inserts, or they'll make lots of hilos and then braid them together or twist them together as well. So there's many ways that you can just adapt this to your personal style, personal liking. I'm going to show another addition if you folks missed it. So we have our frozen leaf, shiny side down, and put it underneath. Make a taco. And twist to the left. And then put over to the right to lock it into place. I like to move my little leaf over so it's more out of the way. And then, let's see, pick another frozen leaf. Doesn't really matter if you choose the bottom or the top of the tea leaf. I personally will usually just choose whichever is the prettier side. So it's sticking out. Make your little taco and twist it into place. Twist to the left. Always twist to the left. And then you're going to lock it in by going over to the right. So twist to the left, over to the right. I have my hook here. It's providing a little bit of tension so I can braid easier. Just to the left, over to the right. I'll lock it in. Also, how many times you twist it and how tightly you make your braid will kind of determine the thickness and how many twists you get in. Again, everyone's will be a little bit different. I just try to make the size and the kind of like the tightness of the braid consistent. It also kind of depends. This was a small tea leaf where I was running out, so the braid got a little thinner. But and then when your lei starts to get too long, you can always loop it back. So you can make loops. Sometimes I'll wrap it around, I'll make a big loop and then hold it with my toe or have your partner, your helper hold it for you. You can always just make loops. That way you can have your lei at a comfortable distance from you and braid easier. How are we doing? Do we have questions, comments? How are we doing on time?
It's 12:32.
Nice.
Lara says the toe method is great.
Yes. The toe method is great until you are taking like 20 prom orders and then your toes are stiff and you can't feel your toes anymore. But other than that, yes, the toe method is super great.
Also get a good stretch in when it gets long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, sometimes I have a helper, which is great. It saves my toes. And then they kind of get to learn and watch, and you have to be a good communicator on telling them that they're too close or don't pull too hard, or, you know, you have to have good communication skills and good teamwork skills. Lei making will definitely teach you patience. Frozen leaf. shiny side down. So there's a couple of different things when you're talking about leis. Some people will call a lei by where it belongs on your body. So you might have heard the term lei po'o, which is a lei that goes on your head. But you might have also heard haku, and you think, oh, wait, isn't that the lei that goes on your head? Even though we hear the word hakule a lot of the times, it doesn't mean head lei. A lei po'o means head lei. And what a haku is it's a different type of style. So like I said, this is a hilo braid. A haku is when you braid, and it's typically a 3-strand braid, and you put different materials into it. If we have time, I may be able to show you guys that too. But we have kind of confused it now with, have you guys ever seen a lei where it's all wrapped and there's lots of raffia on the back or something like that, or maybe ribbon, or when you wrap and wrap and wrap every flower on, it's actually a vili lei. So today, people will say, oh, haku lei, I need a haku lei for my wedding or for my baby shower or whatever the special occasion is. And it's actually not a haku lei. It's usually a vili style or a vili braid that's on your head, which is a lei po'o. So a lei po'o can be any type of lei. It could be twisted, braided, wrapped, hand sewn, threaded. Can be anything. I'll adjust my lei in a moment. But it just means it's on your head. It's a lei po'o, a head lei. Bigger. We're fighting the sunshine. Sorry, guys. Is that better? Yeah, awesome. So when we're talking about lei, you can talk about lei, the style braid that it is, where it belongs on your body, or even the medium that you're using, like a Maile, for example. You need a Maile lei or a Ti Leaf Lei. So there are many different ways we can talk about it. So I always have to ask folks, I always have orders. And they're like, I want a haku lei. I have to ask them, are you sure you want a haku lei? Or do you want a vili lei? And they're like, what do you mean? And I have to explain the different styles or show them pictures or examples of what is it exactly that they really want to wear or they really want to order. Let's see, what are some other important things? Other important things when you're lei making, a big one is making sure that you harvest or you gather, you pick your leaves in the proper way. So we want to make sure that for certain things like flowers, especially, that we are cutting them with like a sharp, like pruning shears or whatnot. And that way we're not damaging our plant. And then with tea leaves, we want to make sure that we hold the stalk and the individual leaf and pull down as opposed to cutting, because that's what's going to cause the least amount of damage and let the tea leaf heal properly. So there's like a lot of mindfulness when you're gathering You're not harming the plant. You're not picking every single tea leaf off to the very tippy top. And then, of course, when you're making your lei, you want to have good intentions, a positive mindset. A lot of people believe that what you're thinking about and how you feel when you're making your lei is what's going to be braided into your lei. So it's always like a time to kind of clear your mind, leave any bad drama or stressful things on the side, and just braid with good intentions. And then after, when you're done making your lei, you want to make sure that your scraps are going to appropriate places. So for me, a lot of my scraps might go to the bottom of my tea leaf planter or pot. It might go into the compost. It might go into the green recycle. Typically, whenever you harvest, especially if it's like a culturally significant plant or from a place that's not your own, you want to take it back and leave the scraps there. But if not, just make sure that you're also, again, being mindful of the rubbish and what we take and what we use, and try not to overtake, things like that. A lot of halal will, after, especially things like Merry Monarch, or where you're competing and you're making many lei, they will do ceremony, and before they take it, and then they'll also go back. They usually harvest in the forest, and they'll again have proper protocols, and they'll put everything back where they found it, where it belongs. But today that might just be your yard. What else? Another lei fact is that if you're giving a lei to somebody who is pregnant or hapai, you should give them a lei that is open as opposed to closed. There's a really big superstition that the lei symbolizes the baby's umbilical cord. So you don't want it to get wrapped around the baby's neck or wrapped around the baby. So therefore we give open lei. That way the pregnancy will be safe and baby will be healthy. Things like that. I've seen a few stories actually on like social media or from, friends that they had a birthday or had a graduation and somebody tried to give them a lei and they kind of froze and didn't want the lei, and everyone kind of got confused, and it's because they were pregnant but they hadn't told anyone yet. So a lot of people have kind of like let the cat out of the bag, or got a surprise when somebody rejected a lei on a special occasion, and then they found out, oh, they had a secret, baby's on the way.
Maybe should always bring a spare set of scissors so they can snip it.
Open it, yeah. So if you have a lei that's closed, yeah, you can always cut it open. If it's threaded and there's thread inside, it's like a floral lei, a kui style, then you can just snip it and tie your thread off so your flowers won't fall off. But I always think that's funny and cute, and hope that I never find myself in that situation one day, and that everybody knows already before they're giving me leis. But yeah, I've also seen that.
How long do you go till?
So it's totally, that's a great question. It's up to you if you're making a style that's open or closed. Lei should come kind of to the mid of your torso, maybe if it's a closed lei, and have a little bit of excess. Lei aren't supposed to sit perfectly on your neck. You're supposed to have a little bit of space in the back. So it depends on the size of the person, your preference, or is this for a really tall kane or maybe a kindergarten graduation, So I'll show you guys how to close this into a perfect circle in just a minute, if you're getting to that point. Otherwise, if it's an open lei, then obviously it'll be much longer. And typically an open lei or a Maile style, you want it to hit about mid-calf. I'm not sorry, not mid-calf, mid-thigh on both sides. And that's where it should end. So I ask, I'll ask, how tall is this person? Or if you have a preference. I typically use my own body as a guide, or whoever my helper is. They get voluntold to model my legs. Another lei thing is like you have to be mindful of if you're wearing it or who the wearer is. There's a lot of things like where everything on your, oh, sorry, a big truck or motorcycle, of your body is very spiritual in Hawaiian culture, very significant. Anything on your head, your shoulders, or anything on your body really, but those places in particular are very sacred and held with really high regard. So if somebody is wearing a lei and they bestow it upon you and they give it to you, it's kind of a big deal because that means they feel safe enough, kind of like worthy enough, trusting enough that their mana, their essence, their kind of spirit is okay, to share with you or be passed on to you, or alternatively, if you wear a lei, you also don't want to just leave it any kind of place because that kind of has some of your essence on it, a little bit of you, a little bit of who you are, and you don't want that to go to somebody, kind of like fall into the wrong hands type of situation. So for my lei here, let's see, should be good. You folks can see me. So I'll kind of measure and see where I'm at. Let's see. So when I end, I still have my two little ends here. I have this puka. Well, my puka is kind of small because it was on the hanger. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed just one of my ends through. I'll tie it in a knot or a square knot, kind of like a double knot, I guess. You can also just twist this so it'll fit a little easier. But essentially, you can also, it might be kind of twisty. Sorry, I know I'm going all over the place. But so I'll just make sure that my lei will lie nice and flat. And I'll feed it through this puka. Oops. My hands are all sticky now. And then you can tie it off. So have my ends. And then I'll tie it twice. So then I have my two little ends. And what this is going to do is it's going to kind of help it to blend in. You won't have more chunky pieces. You can always trim this down. You have brown edges, or maybe you realize your lei is too long. You can always just trim this down. Again, just follow like the natural shape of the leaf. If they're too big, I might leave mine. Mine seem okay. This will kind of be your result. Lei can last a while. You can make these in advance. And what I do is I do one twist like this. I'll put it in a plastic bag, usually just like a little shopping bag or whatever I have on hand. Sometimes I'll save my lei packaging, the little plastic containers as well. You can really use any container. I'll pop it in there and I'll leave it in the fridge, not the freezer. I'll place this into the fridge and it'll just help your lei last a little bit longer. It'll keep everything fresh and crispy. You can also wear your lei, take it off, put it in the fridge. You want to wear it another day, take it out of the fridge the next day and wear it again. Or I'll prep lots of leis, especially during graduation, and I'll slide them all into the fridge. That way the next day or whenever the ceremony is, I have all my leis looking fresh and crispy.
Dr. Nurkina asked if should we apply a bit of oil for making it shiny?
Oh, for my tea leaf leis, I don't. But if I've made lei with kukui leaf, before I braid, I wipe them all down with baby oil. And what that does is it helps remove some of the kukui, kind of have this silverish fuzz on their leaf, which helps reflect sunlight and protect the leaf. But I wipe it off with a cloth and baby oil, and it gives it that deep, rich kukui leaf shine. But for my tea leaf, I find that it doesn't really need it. If it's a little bit sticky, you can see a little bit of my shiny, I might wipe it with just water. But the tea leaf is naturally a little bit more sticky. So you can also rinse it off your leaves with water or wipe it with water in a cloth if you find that your leaves are really sticky or your braid is really sticky. But usually it's fine. I've had it be really sticky when my leaves are starting to get older. They tend to be a little stickier, or you can tell you left your leaf in the freezer a little bit too long if you start to get little freezer burn marks. So depending how freezer burned you are, sometimes I'll just trim it off and my leaf is still good, or maybe it got super freezer burned and I left it in there too long, and in which case I'll just recycle or put my leaves in compost. But older leaves tend to be stickier, but sometimes you just have really juicy, lush leaves that have a lot of liquid, but normally we're pretty good.
What is too long in the freezer?
Maybe about 2 months. I try and use my leaves before 2 months. So you can definitely cut a whole bunch and prep them and just always have them ready. And even if you just make the frozen hilo braid with no inserts, you can whip that up really quickly. And if you ever just need a lei, you realize you have a ceremony or a party and you want to give something special and handmade, you can keep your leaves in the freezer for maybe 2 months. But you can always just peek on them and see if you're getting a little bit of freezer burn. But that's why we put them in the Ziploc bags, to help keep them a little longer and protect them. The best is probably frozen only for, you want to freeze them for at least overnight. That way it's frozen all the way through. You can see the little spots on where it didn't freeze completely through. And if you try and rush and you realize, oh no, I don't have frozen leaves, and you only throw them in for a little while, you'll have little portions of your leaf that aren't frozen yet, and those will crunch and you'll get little cracks or holes. So yeah, maybe a couple weeks in the freezer is best. It's most ideal, but they'll last relatively long in the freezer too. That's a great question. Do you have any other questions?
Anybody want to show us yours?
Yeah.
No.
It's also hard, I know, with sticky fingers. And
Oh,
woohoo! Looking good.
So I didn't freeze my leaves in time. I froze them 2 hours ahead. And so I crunched a bunch, but yeah, at least I learned the technique. And so when I get my frozen leaves, I'll be able to do it and make it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, I've had that too.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for sharing. Another technique people will do is they'll microwave their leaves. I personally don't, because I can never seem to get the timing right. But if you ever feel like you're in a crunch, that might be a method too of putting them in the micro to help soften them up, so you don't have those fresh and crispy bits.
The last time I did it, I was doing it with some of my coworkers, but they ironed them.
Oh yeah, I've seen people do that too.
Make them soft.
Right. I like the freeze method because you can't really mess it up.
Dr. Neriker said some videos show boiling the leaves.
Yeah, boiling. I've heard of that too. It seems like families just pass down like their tradition and their technique and skill and tips and tricks. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways. It's just to help soften up your leaves and, prevent them from crunching.
Thank you for a wonderful session. I really enjoyed it, though I didn't prep my leaves, so I didn't make it.
Yeah.
I'll definitely make it and, share my picture when I make it.
Yeah,
But-
we would love to see your lei when you're done.
Can you ask them to fill out the evaluation? I just
Oh,
put it in the chat.
perfect. Okay, Jessie just put a link into the chat. If you folks can go check that out, it's our evaluation. It helps us be able to create little events like this. So we would love if you take a moment to fill that
Yeah.
out.
I will fill it now, and thank you so much again. And
Yeah.
beautiful Lara, though you did it with half fresh or whatever, it turned out good. I think the trick that was critical that I learned today, it was your twisting technique, because though I made last year and I inserted some flowers, bougainvillea, some places it would open up because, I had to prep the lei the previous night and then take it, to graduation the next day. So some areas, so I think the twisting part was the greatest that I learned, making it tighter. So I think that was my problem.
Yeah. Yep. Always remember too, it should be opposite. Twist to the left,
Yeah.
over to the right. And that'll help keep everything locked in.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Yeah. So thanks everyone, and thank you, Jessica, and I'll see you guys
Absolutely.
probably on some another session.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I have saved your chat so I could learn the different terms, because truthfully I thought all the head lace was all haku lace.
Right.
So, I don't know much, but but anyway, thank you and bye bye everyone.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'll fill in the survey right now. Bye.